To be honest, I don't even know how the hell it happened. It all happened pretty quick. I got a phone call from Steve Gladstone saying that we should have lunch. I mean, the gist of the conversation was Coach Gladstone had pretty much taught every athletic body, every sport, from wrestling, football, basketball, baseball, you name it. Kids have walked on and had been taught to row. And he was very honest and said, I've never had a ballet dancer. I want to give it a go. If you do it like full measure, no regrets, high energy, and you dedicate every piece that you have to give to this process, rowing will be a part of your life till the day you die. And then it's like, yeah, sure. Nebraska's not going anywhere. What's to lose? Like, fuck it. Like, let's do it, you know? Honestly, I don't think anyone sitting in this chair hasn't said that it was the best decision that they've made. Brandon Shelton, graduated class of 2009, and now I'm currently assistant coach. I grew up in Nebraska. My mom had me when she was pretty young, and it was me, my mom, and my sister. My mom trained horses, so that's what we did, climbing hay bales, riding ponies. But I was never really into sports per se. I just preferred running around, having fun, which is kind of what I do now. And then randomly I found my way to ballet, of all things. My sister was doing ballet at the time, and she would come home and kind of show me what she'd learned, but ballet was for girls. So I was a little resistant, but I just kind of danced from that point on. I loved it. It's what brought me to California. I was in the San Francisco Ballet School, and then I danced with the school and ultimately performed a little bit with the company until I kind of felt like I'd had enough. And that's how I ultimately found rowing. Thinking back to my coaches, whether it's Jeff Bond, Steve Gladstone, Mike Tatey, Tim McLaren, like, those are all father figures to me. Not the most orthodox upbringing, but just having a strong male figure taught me a lot of lessons that I don't think I would have learned otherwise. Probably the most stressful part of the job, I would say, realizing what this process meant to me, but then also, like, am I doing enough? Like, I think about it a lot. You come through these doors, I'm gonna do everything I can to support you, help you. We're gonna do it together.
Cal was founded in 1868. The first intercollegiate sport at Cal was rowing, founded in October 1875. The estuary at that time did not have the canal that goes outside the Cal boathouse. That happened much later. The Oakland Tribune at the time had big dreams of this, and there being a grandstand there, and Cal racing, Harvard and Yale, and even haughty Oxford. I look back at that clip from the Oakland Tribune in 1875 and I think, oh my gosh, they totally underestimated what Cal was going to do. The rivalry with Stanford and Washington began around 1903, 1904. Cal spent a lot of time in the early 1900s not winning anything. All that changed in 1923 when they were stuck for a coach and they went to Washington and asked if they had any people who would be interested in coaching at Cal. And Washington said yes because they were worried that Cal would stop rowing. Stanford had already stopped rowing. And if there was no rivals for Washington on the West Coast, that would be the end of rowing on the West Coast. Kai Ebrite, the legend that he was, turned the program around. The varsity crew in 1928 swept all before them. They won at Poughkeepsie and then they went to the Olympic trials. Cal pulled off an amazing victory, and that was it. Then they were off to the Olympics. Cal went on to defeat Great Britain in the final of the Olympic Games in Amsterdam to win the gold medal. To me, it's one of the most amazing achievements at Cal. Roll on a few more years. 1932 Olympics are in Los Angeles, and Kai Ebrite comes up with this phrase, a California crew for the California Olympics. And that was the carrying call of Cal all through 1932. It was the Great Depression, very challenging time in this country. The crew did incredibly well. They beat Washington by a record amount in Seattle. They won the IRAs easily. And then they went to the Olympic trials. They came up against their toughest competition, which was a crew from Penn Athletic Club called the Big Eight. Cal beat them in the final of the Olympic trials by less than 2 feet. It was an incredible victory, but it was nothing like what was going to happen next. They go down to Los Angeles for the Olympic Games. In the Olympic final, they were losing with about 100 meters to go. And the stroke did what they did against Penn AC, brought up the rate, and they crawled over the line by less than 2 feet, again, to win Olympic gold. I mean, incredible. In 1933, there was no IRA. In 1934, he came back to the IRAs and won, and in 1935 as well. And they were looking really good for the 1936 Olympics. And along came that amazing Washington crew in 1936. Cal could have been 3-time Olympic champion. That would have to wait till 1948. There were no Olympic Games in 1940 and 1944 because of the World War. And then the Games were revived again in London in 1948. Washington had an amazing crew that year. They beat Cal by open water at Poughkeepsie. It was just not looking good. Cal wins by a fraction of a foot in the closest Olympic trials race probably ever. And they go on to the final of the Olympic trials where they defeat Princeton and Harvard easily. And there it is. They're on their way to London to the Olympics. They are in the final against Great Britain, who this time are represented by Cambridge University. They win in a record time by 2 lengths of open water. It isn't even close. So to go back to the Oakland Tribune comment, we didn't beat Oxford in the Olympics. We only beat 2 crews from Cambridge in 32 and 48. But we did it on a much grander scale and a grander stage than they could ever have imagined on the Oakland estuary. Kai Ebrite retired in 1959 after an incredible career. It was the end of a remarkable era, in my opinion, in one in which you took high school athletes who never rowed in their lives and made them Olympic champions. And you did that at Cal, and you did that at the University of Washington in ways that really set those 2 schools apart.
We would have our physicals on campus, and then we'd meet up at Edwards Erg Room, and Jeff Bond proceeds to give us a chit-chat about the upcoming season and why we hate Washington and why our only goal is to beat them. The rivalry is incredible because we're kind of on islands. Our major come-together point is the 3rd weekend of April, and we collide, and whoever wins that race is probably going to win the national championship. I love it because the East Coast guys all think they rule the world in the rowing and this and that, but like at the end of the day, real speed, the real boat speed's coming from the West. And it has for 25, 30 years. And it will carry on and continue for the next 150. Guaranteed.
We always travel with a lot of stuff, a lot of parts. And I was pretty much always willing to help any crew. The line to draw is if the Huskies needed help, And to their credit, they didn't often ask. It's petty things like that that make the job worthwhile. I'm Mike Fenley. I was the rigger here from 1981 to 2016. I grew up across the estuary in Alameda, still live there. I was never a people person. There's actually an official note in my file on campus that I don't suffer fools gladly. And imagine the things you have to do to get that noted in your performance review. When Matt Franich retired at the end of 1980, he handed me the keys and walked out the door, and eventually the program saw fit to hire me and pay me what at the time was a ridiculous amount of money to hang around the boathouse and play with their stuff. Back at that time, the skills were pretty simple. They were all wooden boats. By modern standards, they were kind of primitive. As we got more and more into carbon fiber, the second most important component seemed to be wishful thinking. So much of the importance of a boat is what is in the mind of the oarsman, what they think they have, how much they like what they have. People are surprised that I had the same job for 36 years, but at the same time, it was a different job every day. I could never win a race, but I could always lose a race. And that's a scary thing. The last thing I would want to do would be to direct a coach in a different direction and have it come out badly. The changes over the years have been huge. For a long time, it seemed like I might spend my whole career without Cal Crew ever winning the IRA. It took 18 years. And it's still a Cal Crew, still would have been great. But when you can put all these flags up in the ceiling, it's so much better.
Kai Ebrite was replaced by Jim Lemon, who was the freshman coach at the time. And Jim Lemon did an amazing job. He was able to capture the last era before things really became very, very complicated at Berkeley. He won the IRAs in 1960, 1961, and 1964. Marty McNair was the stroke of the 1961 IRA winning crew. He then became the head coach at Cal after Jim Lemon went to become Dean of Students. But it was a very difficult time. Now you had the Vietnam War, you had student unrest, student protests. That era ended with Steve Gladstone coming to Berkeley. He came here to take over a program that had achieved tremendous heights but was now at a bit of a low. I mean, what he did at Cal was just extraordinary. His ability to bring talent in, to get them to the highest level, is just remarkable.
In the late 1980s, early 1990s, college rowing was going through a transition. This was the start of big-time international recruiting. We had a very small budget compared to our competitors, and we didn't get into being able to offer scholarships until I left. I really respect those foreign athletes that came here, especially, in the late 1990s when that was not a real tradition at Cal.
My name is Ivan Smiljanik. I'm a former Cal oarsman, graduated Cal in 2005. I was born and raised in Serbia, in Belgrade, Serbia. We had a big war in Serbia in 1991, 92. I did water polo as a child. That was my outlet at the time. And then when I switched to rowing, that was during peace. I picked up rowing very quickly. Like the first year of rowing, I went to the Junior World Championships. The second year, I won a silver medal at the Junior World Championships. And the third year, I went to the Olympics. So like, it was a very quick growth in that sport. I actually made a terrible mistake. I went to the Olympics without letting anybody know. The Olympics were in September, and I get a phone call from Craig saying, "Hey, where are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm in Sydney." He's like, "Why are you in Sydney? Why are you not here? Like, this classes started like 5 days ago." It's like, "Oh, no, I'm not going to come yet. I'm going to come after the Olympics." That was my first experience with university here, of just like no showing to the school starting. It was humbling coming here that first year. Coming to UC Berkeley where nobody really cares that you don't speak English well, and you're suddenly expected to perform in all these classes with all these other students that speak English way better than me. And so it was quite difficult to juggle that. I view Cal Crew as a single point that changed the trajectory of my life. I moved here from Serbia, and I never left. So like that was 25 years ago. I met my wife when I was in college. We have 2 kids now. Like it's the whole white picket fence, living the American dream. Something that I cherish a lot and respect. But also I want to work extra hard to make sure that the athletes coming behind me have same or better experience that I've had.
I'm Scott Franson, head coach of Cal men's rowing. My entrance into Cal was not smooth. I arrived and quickly understood that I was not a top recruit. I was not actually admitted into the university. I arrived under the understanding that I had sent my application to the coach. I was going to be allowed to live at the boathouse as a partial scholarship, and arrived to realize that neither of those were really true. All of the rooms had been given to much bigger recruits, so I slept on the floor of the coach's office for my first semester. I had a lot of gut check moments in that first semester where it's like, can I do this? Do I want to stick it out? What do I need to do to be successful here? I got told to go home 4 or 5 times in my first semester because I was wasting my time, my parents' money, and the coach's time. Definitely not a normal entrance in, but looking back on it, it shaped me into who I am, and I'm grateful for that adversity. Arriving back for my sophomore year, a bunch of guys from the '99 crew had graduated, a few others were off trialing for the Sydney Olympics. So it was really a clean slate kind of year where a lot of the all-stars were not here, and all of a sudden we had the full attention of Steve Gladstone. I'm not sure Steve Gladstone knew my name until like March of that year. He'll say differently. We went into the racing season thinking that we were fast, but having no idea how we would stack up. And I remember winning the San Diego Crew Classic, beating Washington by close to 5 seconds, and being like, "Wow, okay, like we're fast." Went on to win that IRA by close to 5 seconds. That one will stick with you. On to 2001, some of that all-star power coming back into the mix, and here we were trying to extend on a streak of 2 and trying to make it 3, and there's a little bit more pressure there, and there's a little bit more expectation. Able to win in 2001, and I think the stat from that year is that the bow 7 of that boat at some point went on to the Olympics. Into 2002, and Again, the pressure of the 4 in a row. I think that started to take a little bit of a toll in that year. We had our eyes opened when we lost the Washington duel, but went on to reverse that result and win the Pac-10, and then again win the IRA. Wasn't an undefeated year, but we were able to win the races that mattered most. I feel so fortunate that I was allowed to work my way onto the team in what became, one of the most successful periods of collegiate rowing. I think some athletes, at 10 years old or younger have this dream of going to the Olympics, and I never had that. I just wanted to always get to that next step and to get to the next step and the next step. I was able to race in Athens in 2004, and Beijing in 2008, and then London in 2012, and 3 chances at a medal, and we got one. Won the silver in Beijing. Everybody that hasn't been there looks at that 5th at the Olympics or even the silver at the Olympics as this massive success because you went to the Olympics, you were in the final, and they have no idea that is the greatest disappointment of your life, right? So being able to manage that disappointment and come back from it, that teaches a certain amount of persistence and grit, and that's what I ask of my athletes every single day. I think if you just win everything and you don't ever get that ability to learn from the disappointment, I think I'm definitely a different coach.
The Mike Tatey era started after Mike Tatey's crew won the Olympic gold medal in 2004. And then he was recruited to come to Berkeley to replace Gladstone, who was stepping down. He won a national championship, and then several of his crews won at Henley. He also won the national championship in 2016, beating a really favoured Yale crew in an amazing IRA final. Tatey's era and the beginning of Scott's era were really 2 periods of dominance, one by University of Washington and then followed by Yale. These things go in cycle, and so when I thought when Scott took over that this was Cal's time, you could just feel things were starting to get better and better, and then all of a sudden COVID happened. And I just felt the whole season just disappeared and all the momentum that they had built up. But then 2022 rolls around the season. All the East Coast schools are back. People have been away for the Olympics. There's just great excitement about this new season. And I remember going down to the duel, and Cal just blew University of Washington away. Cal had a great season, undefeated, and then comes along the IRA final. Everyone was expecting Yale to sweep. Cal just did an amazing job and won the race.
Excellent win.
You could just tell that it was Cal's time. And then 2023 comes along, and you just have all of these people who've been rowing together. It was just an incredible team. You could just feel the spirit of that team was just so special. For the first time in its 148th year, Cal had swept the IRAs. It was just an extraordinary year for them.
Andy Rogers, and I'm a board member of the Friends of Cal crew. My dad, he got picked out of line by his coach, Jim Lemon, didn't know anything about rowing. Through that moment in time process, would then become one of those people who got attached to the sport, to a life experience, a life structure that he always thought guided him throughout his life. He wound up purchasing and then growing Dreyer's Ice Cream to a large company, and through the success of that, was able to be in a position to really support what happens down here at the boathouse. It's like when the day I was born, it was like, 1967. I think that was when the whole structure of Friends of Cal crew got formalized. It was the first of a long line of days when Cal would say, yep, that's great, guys, but we don't have enough money. The alumni got together just to book the expenses to get the guys out to race in a national championship. And then from then on, each time there was another challenge, the friends would step up, meet that challenge, and continue to get the program to where it is today. And even though my success and what I got out of rowing was, there's no national championships under my era. Watching my dad put his value into it. And then he kind of wrangled me a little bit. And then when he passed away, it became very clear that look, if the Rogers were gonna stay involved, it looked to me. The new world of college athletics is live or die, or closing the gap, where we're really getting closer to having another program at Cal that's endowed. The new landscape is find a way to make it work or goodbye. That's the bogey that's out there, and we're charging towards it, pulling towards it.
Over the course of the history of Cal, we've won 19 national championships. One of the unique features or the unique bits of being at Cal, every single year we set our sights on winning. In the last 30 years, every single year, Cal has had a chance to win. The life lessons that you learn are so much more permanent when you have the standing or the stature to stand up and say, hey, we're trying to win. Because that's hard, that's exposing. The headline or the stated goal always has to be the pursuit of winning. And then everything else that is the true value of it, that's what you get in that pursuit.
Crew has been a lifelong thing for me. It changed my life.
There's not many things in your life that you can really say, like, hey, I've done that at world-class level. And be able to have the benefit of a world-class education and be able to do rowing at a high level, go have some fun on the side. So that was easy in hindsight.
If we didn't have it 150 years ago, I don't think it would exist now. One thing that's constant is water, boats, oars, 8 dudes and a little man going from point A to point B as fast as they can.
I'm sure the guys in 2025 know that they would not be successful if it was not 150 years of people coming down here with dreams, people coming down here wanting to make their mark in this program.
We are here because of those who went before us, and we owe them victory.